to do the intro?
Yeah. Good morning. This session is going to be recorded and posted on the Steel City website or YouTube. So if you do not want to be part of the recording, we ask that you drop out and listen to the recorded version. So good morning. I'm Victor Sicleri. And we've got Betsy McGovern here, and we're coaches with the Steel City Roadrunners Club. We're going to talk today about the taper. So we're going to go through some planned material, but then we invite any and all to ask questions at any point in this process.
Right.
So we're going to try to keep it to under a half hour.
Yeah.
Oh, and we should say that we're both fully vaccinated. So the fact that we're in a room together next to each other is entirely consistent with CDC guidelines.
Right. I guess we could be a couple feet further apart, but
might not fit on the screen.
And the scenario here, in the past, if you've joined in, we've been doing this from our kitchen tables or our offices at home. Today we do have a group run happening at 8:30. So Victor and I came down here to do this first, and then we're going to head on outside. Join the rest of our team who's coming today to help get some runners off a little bit later. So today, the topic we're going to talk about is the taper for the marathon, the full marathon, and the half marathon. If you have never tapered for a long race before, there's some key parts to it that will make it your race day better and make it much easier for you to face the challenges of race day. The key ingredient of the taper is the word rest, R-E-S-T. It is meant for physical and mental rest, which is just as important, especially at this stage of the game. If you're training for the marathon, and if we were really doing it on May 2nd, it would be 3 weeks from tomorrow. So you'd be starting your full marathon taper after your 20-miler today. So if you are doing your last 20 or 22-mile run today, you will begin the taper tomorrow. Three things to think about. We're going to cut back on total mileage each week. We're going to taper down the total mileage for the week. We're going to cut back on frequency of your runs. And we're going to cut back on distance, different from total mileage, distance of each run until the last week, but not the intensity. We will work on tapering back intensity the very last week. So starting with the taper for the full marathon, 3 weeks out, this coming week, your final long run of 20 miles is today, and that's the peak training distance, or 22, whatever you do for your last long run will be your peak training distance for the training sets, training session cycle. That's the word I'm looking for. Yes. This week I
couldn't help you. I'm still working on my coffee here.
I didn't have another cup. That was my problem. You want to cut your total weekly mileage by about 25% to about 75% of what you did this past week. So let's just say that for your peak mileage this week, you did 40 miles. And to cut that back by 25%, you will be now looking to try to do 25 to 30 miles this coming week. Try to maintain your intensity and pace that you have been doing, however you've been training. If you're a first timer, you're just getting your miles in. If you're a more experienced racer, you're doing some runs at race pace, some runs at tempo pace. You're doing some various things, which we won't really talk about today. And if there are two ways to cut the mileage. You can turn an easy day into a rest day, or you can reduce your total mileages by cutting your run distance in half, by maintaining your intensity. So say on Wednesday, you typically do 6 miles, you can cut that to 3 or 4, but maintain the same pace that you typically do. That would be week 1. Week 2, 2 weeks from race day, you're gonna reduce that 30 miles a week then by 50% to about 15 miles for week 2 of the taper, reduced to 50% of your peak mileage. That would be 15 to 20 miles. But you're again maintaining intensity. This is a good time now to eliminate cross-training, especially your gym workouts and track workouts. Any extra gym track training you're doing at this point is not going to help you on race day. Your training is already in place, and it could possibly lead to an injury since your body is still pretty tired from this whole training cycle that you've been working on.
So let me jump in here and add a little of the physiology here. So when you go on these long runs, you're stressing out your muscles, you're creating these micro tears as you push your body kind of to the limit, longer than you've run before. So it's important to allow your body to heal. And part of the taper is in reducing the mileage is to allow your muscles to heal. So if you continue with the intensity thinking, geez, I need to stay in great shape so that I'm prepared for the marathon, you're actually going to do yourself a disservice. It's really important to pull back on some of the intensity so that your muscles have an opportunity to repair. It's also very important to eat the right foods as you come closer to the marathon. Tapering on run doesn't mean that you can then go wild and start drinking and stuff like that, because that's just going to, dehydrate you and damage your body. So, continue on. It's like, you don't want to give up at the 5-yard line. This is, an important part of the training process.
Right. Yep. And we'll talk about some of these points in the next one, 2 weeks from now, when we'll talk about good points for race week. So nutrition, intensity, resting are very important that week. So week 3, you'll now be 1 week from race day. You're going to reduce your mileage by another 50%. So if you did 15 to 20, week 2, you're going to reduce down now to about 8 to 10 miles this week. And boy, does that feel good when you get to that point. You're starting to feel rested. Your brain is realizing that you have time to do a few other things in your life, which is very nice. You can reduce your intensity, your pace, just go out and do what feels good. If it doesn't feel good and you feel like you need extra rest, take the day off. Nothing is going to add or subtract from your training this week, even if you take the entire week off, really. Pay careful attention, as Victor said, to your diet this week. Watch the junk food. Make sure you're eating your good carbs, fruits, vegetables, grains, the usual stuff that I'm sure we all know about. So that's the taper process for the full marathon. For the half marathon taper, the taper starts at 2 weeks before race day. Week 1, your final long run is typically 10, 11, 12 miles, whatever your training plan or your personal idea is going to be for that. That will be the peak training for distance. Your total weekly mileage and intensity this week, you can cut by about 1/3. So if you're peaking out at 30 miles, you can cut down to about 20 miles for week 1 of your 2-week taper. Maintaining most of your intensity, that will help keep your legs remembering what they're going to need to do on race day. And during week 2 of the half marathon taper, 1 week from race day, you're going to reduce your mileage by another 1/3. So again, like a full marathoner, you're going to be doing maybe 8 to 10 miles this week total. This is pretty much the same as the full marathon taper last week. Let's see, where are we? You're going to eliminate cross-training this week, reduce your intensity, and pay special attention to your diet. And the final 3 days before race day, I like to recommend, and everybody's a little different, but I like to recommend 2 of those 3 days be total rest days, and easy run on 1 day of your choice, whichever one you want to do. Some people like to do a little like 5K the day before their race day, just to keep their legs fresh and get their brain engaged and ready to go. If you're going to do that, that's fine. Just take a couple days off before that, just to make sure everything is staying rested. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Can't say that enough. And try to get some sleep. You're not going to sleep well, especially if it's your first long race. You're not going to sleep well the night before the race. So the couple nights before that, try to make sure you can get as much sleep as you can. So I kind of went through some examples. The full marathon taper, if you're peaking at 40 miles on your 20-miler, week 1 of the taper, you're going to run 25 to 30 miles. Week 2 will become 15 to 20, and week 3, 8 to 10. And with the half marathon taper, peaking 20 to 25, 30 miles the last week before taper, you'll run 13 to 15 during week 1 and 6 to 8 during week 2 or 10. It really depends on where you are as an athlete and how many times you've done this, and so it's variable. This is the time to enjoy resting, enjoy having extra time. Don't let your brain start telling you, oh, I need to train more, I'm going to lose fitness. It happens to everybody. You're sitting around thinking, oh, I should be running, but really your training is all in place 3 weeks before your race, even before your half marathon. You will not gain and you will not lose fitness by adding or subtracting. So do what feels good to you. If you feel like you need extra rest days, take them. And don't forget, the other thing that needs rest is your mental game, your brain. Mm-hmm. It needs to be just as rested as your muscles on race day in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So that's
throw in a little mindful meditation.
Absolutely.
It's a great way to kind of calm your nerves, because as Betsy said, you're likely to have the pre-marathon, half marathon jitters the night before. You're going to feel restless. You're going to beat yourself up because you didn't sleep well. It's not going to matter, because the adrenaline on race day will get you going. What you want to do is make sure you have mindset, because I'd say like 80 to 90% of the marathon is the mental fitness, and the 10 to 20% is the physical fitness. So you can easily psych yourself out by letting your mind go crazy. So it's really important to stay focused mentally and physically on the goal, and not let the outside forces impact you. Obviously, if you get sick the week of marathon, that's a challenge. Rest, recover as much as you can. I don't want to say it's just a race, but it is just a race. There's always other opportunities. If you're really sick, it doesn't make sense to go out and run the marathon and put your life at risk. So you kind of need to be mindful of like what you're capable of doing, what you're not capable of doing if you are sick leading up to race day. The other thing I'll add is the week before, if you feel anxious, you feel like nervous and you've got extra energy, instead of running longer, go out for a nice walk in the woods, calm yourself, surround yourself with nature. That's a good way to stretch your legs and burn off some energy without necessarily pushing your muscles to the point that you don't have fresh legs on race day.
Right. So rest with capital letters for both your brain and your body.
Yeah, it is part of the plan. It is not slacking off. It is actually part of the plan.
I like to say rest is the most underutilized training tool we have. It's so important. Particularly when you're training for long races. So, as Victor said, get out and walk. If you really do need to burn off some steam, do it with your family, your kids, your neighbors, your dog. Find a buddy to go hiking through the woods. Although be careful,
get injured.
You don't want to twist an ankle. And in addition to illness, if you're feeling an injury coming on or a potential injury coming on a week before, this is the time to address it and really make sure that you're okay to go on race day. If you feel, I have suffered 2 foot stress fractures 2 to 3 weeks before marathon day, and I've had to, bail out. And it's no fun having to do that, but listening to your body is really what you need to do, because as Victor said, there will always be another race. And that's very true. It's better than trying to push through on a sort of injured body and then really regret it later and have yourself taking much longer to heal and recover for the next time. So listen to your body. If you're feeling something that isn't right, check in with your medical professional. Give it 2 or 3 days, and if it's just not good, check in with a medical professional and get it evaluated before you run such long distances. So
if you're injured and you say, I'm just going to push through it, the likelihood is that you're going to do more damage to your body and it's going to take you longer to recover. One of the biggest fails that people do is they do not allow themselves to fully recuperate, and they get anxious and they want to get back running. And what happens is, they have this long period of recovery, and then they, cut it short and they start again and they re-injure, and then the second time takes twice as long to recover. So again, can't stress the idea that there's plenty of races in the future. You want to make sure your body's fit. You don't want to increase or extenuate an injury by pushing through it. So just kind of be mindful. Your body's sending signals to you and letting you know that something's wrong. So as Betsy says, see a medical professional. Don't post on Facebook asking your friends for advice. I mean, it's great if you've been diagnosed and you want to ask people, like what their experience is, but you really should take the advice of a medical professional to make sure that you're getting the right advice for what you have, not because it seems like maybe it's like something someone else had.
Right. And, sometimes you'll feel a little something 3 weeks, like on your run today, or maybe your short run tomorrow, and you still have 3 weeks until your race day. So now would be the time actually to address something, because it's possible if you've got a little strain or a little pull of some sort, you could probably rest it up and still be okay to go. So even if it's happening now, get it checked out and you'll very likely be rested and ready to go on race day. So info@steelcityrrc.org is our email. The coaches, we are all coaches. We check our info box if you have questions about these last couple of weeks of your training. Maybe you're not running on race weekend. Maybe you're doing it next weekend or 5 weeks from now. And you have some questions about how your training is going or how you want your race to go. Please feel free to send us an email, and one of us will definitely get back to you quickly, hopefully helping answer any questions you might have.
Or you can post it on the Facebook page.
Yes, or post, absolutely, because other people might have experiences they can share as well. So looking ahead to race week, the very last week of the taper, we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. But basically, we're going to talk about dealing with race week jitters, especially for the first timers, or if you're going for a goal like a Boston qualifying time. That week can be very unnerving. We'll talk about rest. We'll talk about your clothing and foods. And this year, of course, we're not going to an expo, but we can touch on that a little bit. Planning out your race morning, parking, your realistic race goals, and then obviously afterwards, how to recover properly after you've run your race. So that's next time. Lots to cover in the next session. That will be April. Today's the 10th, so the 17th, the 24th?
24th,
I believe, yeah. April 24th.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing to start thinking about, since everybody's kind of virtual this time, is there's not going to be any road support for you as you go your half or full marathon. So reach out to fellow runners, and maybe you can pair up with somebody and you can have a spouse, significant other, family member available on the course to provide some help along the way. If you can't do it by yourself, you might be able to leverage the support that other people have, and you can have somebody stationed at 15 miles, somebody at 20 miles, just there for whatever physical need whatever physical issues you may have, like replenish water or hydration, and probably as important, just the mental support, the social support. I know I love having somebody in the back end of the marathon there to cheer me on, to get me to the finish line, and it's going to be harder doing it virtually. So there's unfortunately no way around that.
There is no way around that this year. I ran the virtual marathon last year and opted out of doing that again this year. Although it was a very unique experience, I will say. I actually did it in my neighborhood. I have a half-mile flat loop in my cul-de-sac neighborhood, and did 52 and something loops of the half-mile neighborhood. But what I did was recruited almost all of my neighbors to come out, and they had music playing. The kids rode their bikes with me with their little masks on. This was last April I did it. They had water tables out, they had cheering, and we had a toilet paper finish line at the end. So anything you can do to particularly make those last few miles a little bit easier, especially mentally for you, do it. See what you can do. Check on Facebook, get some friends to support, friends, family, neighbors who however it works.
Yeah, there's a lot of great trails you can take advantage of that are fairly flat and straight, like the Montour Trail. You can go from mile 0 to, I don't know, like 100 and still to kind of be within 10 or 15 minute drive. You've got North Park, which has almost an exact loop of 5 miles. So you go around that, 5 times plus another 1.2 miles. So, you can have your car situated with all the things that you might need. So every 5 miles, you've got something to pull on. So even if you don't have support, that's something that a lot of people do, and you don't have to worry about crossing streets. If you're going to be running the course per se, you need to be mindful of traffic and traffic lights. And, so if you're doing it for a time, that's not really the best course to run. If you're doing it for the experience, it's totally, fine. Just again, make sure you have the right support. Make sure you have your phone with you, because if you have something and you need help, you can always call an Uber or a family member to pick you up.
Yeah, one nice thing about North Park, and maybe some of the other parks, I've never run at South Park, but
yeah, neither have I.
As Victor said, that 5 mile loop is great. You can change directions. They also have bathrooms open,
Yes.
One at the boathouse and one on the backside at the J.C. Stone Field.
And they may have porta potties open at this point
yeah.
along the way.
So that's also something to think about. And as you said, no traffic. And if you can manage to go during the week, there are fewer people there. Yeah. You can kind of pick the weather day that you want to go. And also running a loop like that, you can invite running friends to join you. Maybe you can find 4 or 5 friends, one to join you for each loop. Mm-hmm. So, or even just the last couple of loops, or even just the last 1.2 miles or whatever you need to do. So that's an advantage of going to a place like North Park, even though it can get a little monotonous running around the lake. Yeah.
And it can get crowded. If you're going to go on the weekends, you're going to be dealing with walkers, people with pets, other runners, bicyclists. So just be mindful, try to pick an off. If you can pick an off day, that's good. If you get out there at the crack of dawn and get it done before it gets too crowded. So
anyway, just some points of advice for those of you who may not have thought about those things. So I think we're ready to wrap it up here.
Yeah, unless there's questions. Ellie, I don't know.
Do you have a question? If not, we'll wrap it up and say.
She's off mute.
Good. Oh, Ellie, do you have a question?
No, I was just going to say thank you guys, because I don't live in Pittsburgh. So for you guys to do this type of stuff, I've been able to feel like I've actually been part of marathon weekend like I always do. So in the future, I know that it's me and you guys today, but for us that are not in Pittsburgh, it's a nice way for us to still be part of Steel City. Because I am still a member, and for me to feel that, so if you guys would do this more often, trust me, I feel that us that are out of state would take full advantage of this.
Okay,
great.
Thank you. That's great advice.
We've been doing it every other week, pretty much. So hopefully you've heard about the other sessions we've had. This is not the first one. Yeah. And then obviously they're all recorded, all maybe except one.
I think the first one we had a glitch.
Yeah. So thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. And I hope you'll be able to come to our beautiful city to run it with people in person at some point very, very soon. I think, the Liberty Mile at this point is in July, end of July. The registration just opened. So that's a fun race. Hopefully there'll be enough vaccinations that we could do it live. And then really the next big race is probably the great race, the 5K, 10K, which is an awesome experience, lots and lots of people. So that'll be in September.
What I'm hearing from you though, as an out-of-towner, is that maybe to continue these sessions every so often, even after marathon training season is over, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a great idea, and we will definitely, I'll pass that word on to the rest of the team, but I don't see any reason, why we couldn't start doing something, once or twice a month, just addressing different topics. Feel free to send us ideas too for some things you might like us to talk about, because we'd love to hear from. Just send them to the info box. So
sure. I did the virtual last year for last year would have been year 5 or 6. I think that where I'm at right now in the marathon weekend. I haven't missed one yet, and it is sad because it's one of my favorites, and it's the one that anyone asks me, which marathon would you prefer to do? And I'm like, either the half, the full in Pittsburgh, there's always somebody there to cheer you on. So it's one that I recommend for anybody out to come into. I mean, I only live in Wheeling, but at the same point in time, like, you know, I can't get up to Pittsburgh for the weekly, you know, run sessions and things like that. So I get, you know, my FOMO kicking when I get those emails. But, you know, I just wanted to say, like, Pittsburgh is my one race that honestly, I'm like, if there's a race to run, Pittsburgh's the one to choose.
Oh, great. Well,
Excellent feedback.
We'll try to keep that the top.
Yeah, not that I've run a lot of races elsewhere, but I always hold them up to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is generally, P3I does a wonderful job all around. The other marathons that I've run in just do not have the same support, same organization coordination. So I might be biased because this is my hometown and it's easy to just run down and run the race, but I do think it's wonderful.
There's something to be said for sleeping in your own bed the night before you run
Yeah.
too. But I have run in a lot of different places. And I'm kind of with you with the virtual last year. It was my 10th Pittsburgh. Not 10 in a row because I ran some earlier in the early 2000s, but I was determined to get that 10th one in so that, I don't know, I just kind of figured you can't leave it at 9, right? You had to get the 10th. So hopefully next year we'll see you in person at the starting line.
Yes.
And very, very positive about that.
Yeah.
So good luck when are you doing your run?
Mine is a week after because I'm actually meeting up with one of my friends in Washington, and we're actually running together there.
Great.
Excellent.
Great. Well, let us know if you have any questions as you head towards race day.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good run.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.